Help me.
I saw it.
Yeah, because it's warm in here.
I think it's you, Paul.
Shoe Paul. Ooh. Hot flash.
I'm hot today.
See the book?
He's hot today. You're right, that's right. He's hot today. Look out, we have nothing to do yet.
Yeah.
You already turned that book in.
I turned the book
Hey, you
in.
know what?
I got it back.
I haven't
I'm
picked
not
up.
accepting books.
Paul, what are you going to be on top of like when now?
We need our supplements. No.
Have your new supplement?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open our regular meeting with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case anybody's wondering what our flags and balloons are, there was a election held here today by the school children of the town of Tiverton, and they cast their ballots on a national level. Well, I'll let the town clerk tell you who won.
You can't tell it till after the election.
These are early voters.
Still a freak.
These are early voters.
The late ones.
It was overwhelming for one candidate. However, we have an election coming up, and we expect everybody to participate and vote. So, now, town clerk.
Councilor Ruda. Councilor Medeiros.
Present.
Councilor Durfee.
Here.
Councilor Carroll.
Here.
Councilor Costa.
Absent. Here.
Physically or
Councilor
mentally.
Boland.
Present.
All present. No, I don't think so.
Okay, Mr. Bowen.
Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the special council meeting minutes of October 6, 2008. Approval of executive session minutes meeting of October 6, 2008. Approval of executive session minutes meeting of October 14, 2008. Councilor Durfee abstained, not attended. Approval of executive session minutes of the meeting on October 20, 2008. Approval of executive session minutes meeting of September 22nd. Approval of executive session minutes meeting of July 14, 2008. Councilor Rivers abstained, not in attendance. Approval of executive session minutes of meeting of May 27, 2008. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions: Personnel Board, Conservation Commission, Prevention Coalition, School Committee, Recycling Committee, Recreation Committee. 4, Wastewater Management Commission. 2, and the Tiverton Arts Council. Correspondence received and filed. Received from City of Warwick related to Universal and Regional Health Care. Received from Mr. Camaro regarding Shore Road area, forwarded to DPW Director. Received from City of Warwick related to legislation for bicycle safety. Received from Town Enforcement resolution relating to opposition to Medicare reform / Rhode Island Global Compact waiver application. Received request from Tom Ramatowski Conservation Commission for council to direct / order town clerk to send memo related to support of eelgrass restoration to Safety Bay as previously approved by council. Proposed letter attached.
Are there any withdrawals or changes to the consent agenda?
Madam President, I wish to remove 2 items, item G21 and item 3E.
It's really 2G.
2G1, isn't it, Paul?
No, it's
Correct?
2G.
2G1, because there are 4.
I think it is under the receipt of minutes, it's G.
G, yes.
Yes, so it's,
And 3E. 3E.
3.
The last one.
Any other changes?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Motion carries unanimously. Paul?
Thank you, Madam President.
2G.
2G, and that is the minutes of the recreation of October 22nd, and it is the second item down on it, public delegation. According to the minutes, it says Laurie Smith, owner of Hot Diggity Dogs, asked for permission to sell hot dog, soda, and prepackaged desserts at the Tiverton Recreation Program at Fogland and Grinnell's Beaches this summer. A motion was made by Jack Cook to support Miss Smith's sales, so there was no other town organizations, organized organizations selling the same products at the concessions. The motion was seconded by Phyllis Brower and passed unanimously. The only reason why I raised this, when the council voted to give Ms. Smith her license, her peddler's and hawker's license, I raised that issue. The town ordinance clearly states that no one can sell their products within 500 feet of any one of the town facilities, and that is section 5833 of the town ordinance. It clearly says, in no event shall any hawkers or peddlers exercise holding within 500 feet of any public beach. So once again, and that was clearly stated that night, and I just feel bad, that it was mentioned to that lady that evening when she came before us, and here we having the recreation, telling her that she can do that. I would hate to see that individual go the whole winter thinking that she'll be able to do that come the spring or summer when everything opens up. So therefore, I just want to make mention of that, and that maybe the administrator can talk with recreation and maybe get that clarified. And, if that lady wants to come before the next council to see about an ordinance change or something like that, I just raised that concern. That there's a possibility she's not going to be able to do that. So I just wanted to bring that up. I just thought that was worth mentioning. The second thing, going down on the same minutes, Jack, under new business, Jack Cook received a letter from Mark Rockwell from Uxbridge, Mass., requesting the use of Fogland Beach for a party for Tuesdays this summer, August 9th and 10th. Mr. Cook will have his boat offered on the beach, anchored off the beach. A motion was made and passed to support Mr. Rockwell's use of the beach for grilling, and that no alcohol is allowed. Mr. Cook will inform Mr. Rockwell of this. We went through this again last summer also. The citizens of Tiverton have to get off that beach at 10 o'clock. And I just kind of take exception that we're allowing someone else to utilize the beach for 2 days around the clock when the citizens of Tiverton have to get off there at 10 o'clock at night. And I take exception to that. Also, town ordinance clearly states that special use of town property or facilities, the non-official use of an individual of any town building, park, or beach, or town facility that would interfere with the normal public use, which means this man's going to be there around the clock, it has to be solely done by the town administrator. So once again, I will make that be referred to the town administrator. I just think that, that things like that clearly need to go to the town administrator, and if we're kicking our own people out there, we shouldn't be giving exceptions for other people to be there around the clock. And with that, I don't want to be dragging on because we've got a pretty long agenda here, but I'll yield to anyone else if they want to say something, and then we'll accept the minutes.
The only thing that I would, as I look at these minutes that you mentioned, these were dated in June, and I think we might have dealt with these things at a prior meeting, but it's a reminder that we should just monitor and make sure that we don't get into the problem once again.
If I may say a word, it was handled before. This did not happen, and I just emailed Gary Rose, the chairperson of Recreation, a copy of the ordinance 58-33 in the event that there's a reoccurrence of this coming summer.
Okay. Thank you. With that, can we move to accept the...
Move to accept.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand, please. Okay, moving on to the next item. Paul?
Next item. As much as I would love to tell the clerk what to do, we have a letter from, we have an item here from Mr. Ramakowski asking, well, I request that the town council direct the clerk to generate and send a previous approved letter of support to Save the Bay for the eelgrass restoration efforts. As much as I'd love to direct the clerk, I think it'd be only appropriate that we ask the clerk. The clerk is an elected official, and I don't think the council is in the position that we direct the clerk to do that. I know her husband's been probably trying to tell her to do things for years, but I think it'd only be appropriate that we ask the clerk. So I make a motion that we accept this from Mr. Ramakowski and that we ask the clerk to send the letter.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Motion carries.
Nancy, will you please send the letter?
I'm abstaining, because I think the town clerk is currently acting in the capacity as clerk of the council. I think it would be appropriate to ask the director to select her.
Okay, now let's move on here. Next item is a request by Attorney Leary that we continue the public hearing that was continued to this date from July 14th, 2008, to the second meeting in January.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. Motion carries. The next public hearing we have is a proposed ordinance change with regard to curb cuts and excavations, which would allow or require the prior approval by RIDOT or DPW for curb cuts and certain excavations. I will open the public hearing on that. Is the DPW here, or DPW director here? Jim, do you want to?
No, he's on vacation. He was coming back from Florida today and was unsure if he would be able to make the meeting.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to just read the proposed change. All curb cuts on state streets must receive prior approval from the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Town streets, separate category. All curb cuts on town streets must receive prior approval from the Department of Public Works, DPW Director, and it shall be in accordance with the requirements of the RIDOT rules and regulations concerning permission and use of state highway rights-of-way. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on this matter?
When time comes. I went through this particular ordinance and found something not in the changes that I would like to get corrected. It's a very small item under 70.32 excavations. You're going through under item B1, talks about submissions required preceding to issuance. Item A, a drain layers bond in the amount of $10,000 issued by a responsible company. That should actually be read, a company licensed to do business in the state of Rhode Island.
Where's that change?
On the page 2,
Yep.
about halfway down, item B1A.
Yep.
Drain layers bond in the amount of $10,000 issued by a responsible company should be changed.
And your suggestion is to have a company licensed to do business
In the state of Rhode Island, a bonding company licensed to do business in the state of Rhode Island. Yes, it's a motion I'm making to to amend that
Second.
one item. Thank you.
I'm going to take a vote on that. All those in favor of that proposed amendment, raise your right hand before we vote on the ordinance itself. Well, I have no public comment. I'll close the public hearing, and we will proceed to discuss the basic proposal itself. Anybody wishes to make a motion
I would move the adoption of the ordinance as put forth
as amended?
as amended.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a question. We talk about curb cuts. Anytime someone's putting a driveway, whether it's a curb, it's considered a curb. We have to make that, I think we should make that clear, because the argument I can see coming forward is somebody saying, I didn't cut a curb. You know, because if there's a curb in place, I can understand the permission, you know, from DOT as to where it's going to be, what has to replace corners and so forth. Most of our construction in town is done without cutting any curb.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are we going to still consider that curb cuts, or should we have some explanation?
So the installation of a driveway?
Well, I mean, I'm asking a question. I wish the DOT director was here, because I think we need to, you know, clarify, because I don't want somebody, you know, doing something and say, I didn't violate ordinance because I didn't cut a curb. And clearly, when you get on the state road, they're curved roads,
Yeah.
and someone has to physically cut or remove, you know, a portion of that curb.
There are streets that have no curb.
I think that's a good point. In fact, I believe we changed this back a year or two ago because we changed it to the excavations for just that reason.
Drain layers.
Yeah, to deal with that it's, you know, not just someone who's laying a drain or cutting a curb. I'm not sure if we missed this, although it's being added here. Maybe what we should do here is just,
Well, it says curb cut and excavation.
We should put a definition in it.
well, I was just gonna say about excavations including curb cuts, and then change the next two where it says curb cuts to excavations everywhere else. So it would say curb cuts, State Street, say excavations, State Streets, all excavations on State Streets, and then below Town Street, all excavations on Town Streets. But maybe if we leave in the title, including curb cuts, since that's the phrase that many people understand.
Let's go over that again.
Okay, and then the first title would be excavations,
Okay, the
including,
70, but hold on.
70-3.
70-3 would be excavations, including curb cuts.
Okay.
So then, okay. Then there's one change also, because we're changing the title from curb cuts, or we just,
So it wouldn't be curb cuts and excavations on it, would be excavations including curb cuts.
Okay,
That's what it would say.
and then coming down to 70-3-1,
Would be curb cuts including.
no, it'd be
No.
excavations,
Excavations.
including all curb cuts.
Yeah, including.
On state streets. Same thing on the town streets.
Exactly.
Yep.
Excavations, okay, that would be a consistent excavations in 4 places. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second.
Do we have to amend that, well, to include the changes we just made?
I was going to say I would expand my motion to include the discussions that just took place.
And the, a second to
And I'll
that.
second that.
All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Close that public hearing, move on to the next. The next item is a proposed amendment to the junk dealers and junkyards ordinances. And I believe the chief would like to be heard on this.
Madam President, members of the council, with times becoming more difficult and people scrapping metals and stealing catalytic converters and manhole covers, just like some method to check the records of these items that come into our scrap yards as part of the limit change. Also, as far as the 7 business days holding the items separate from anything else before they start mixing in with other items, so we can inspect them, possibly for evidence.
Where are these changes in the ordinance and?
Well, it's the last part of the,
Yeah,
Does it,
the packet doesn't have the underlying
6270.
version of what's new and what's existing. They don't.
We don't have the packet with the red line copy.
This would have been handed out to them prior, that's why. Handed out.
I don't think so.
You want me to?
Want to go over those, Andy, to see it?
Yeah.
You have them now, Nancy, could you?
Yeah, why don't I?
Why don't we, I will make a motion, I will ask for a motion that we could just continue this for a very few minutes till we regroup.
So moved.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand, and we will move on to number 4, which is a request for continuance for a proposal, for a public hearing.
Make a motion that we continue
It's the
entertainment license ordinance and also the amendment fee schedule ordinance until the town council meeting on November 24th.
Yeah, I hate to be difficult, but I think you need to have 2 separate motions since they're both public hearings. And I think the administrator wants to have a different date on the fees anyway.
I'll interpret that as a motion on number 4. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Mr. Gonzalo, you want to be heard on number 5?
Well, I also wanted to be heard on number 4, but that's okay. I'd like to amend that to extend the date to December the 8th, because that will be the first meeting for the new council, and it might just be a little too much to cope with on the first meeting.
I so move.
the first meeting, maybe November 10th.
Yeah, probably will be.
Well, that would be the installation of the new
Yeah,
council.
but then that'd be their first meeting.
Might as well
They don't, it's like.
immerse people in the difficulties of the day. Okay, a motion has been made with regard to continuing the proposed ordinance on fees, fines, and permits to December 8th.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Now, are we in a position to go back to junkyards? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to say get a copy of the drainage.
We'll move to the fire. We are sitting in conjunction with the public hearing that has been continued from October 14th. Exactly, sitting as a board of licensing commissioners. And it's a continuation of the show cause hearing for Spar Island Enterprises.
Good evening, Madam President. Chief Robert Lloyd, Tiverton Fire Department.
Stephen Little, attorney for Spar Island Enterprises.
And Michael Kelly, over.
Chief, you want to go forward, please?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, last time we were here, there was a discussion, and the council took action to suspend the license of Spar Island Little Bear Lounge, waiting the completion of a fire alarm box being connected in the building. There was discussion at that time that the fire alarm box was going to take several weeks to do. Immediately after the revocation of the license or the suspension of that license, less than 10 hours later, the box was supplied to the building. Less than 24 hours after that, the box and the fire alarm system was hooked up and completed. I find that extremely frustrating. Mr. Littman and I, we somewhat disagree on this. But as fire chief, I find it somewhat the symptomatic of the way these has gone on. I understand that the counselor has only been on this case for 30 days. We are back now again where this council had stated that on last Tuesday, plans for a sprinkler system were to be at my office. Those plans did not arrive. Thursday, I was told by the counselor that they would be at my office. They did not arrive. They did arrive this afternoon at noontime. Again, I find this extremely frustrating that we're continually trying to, whenever there is an issue of being back against the wall or coming back up for another suspension hearing, that all of a sudden these things tend to appear. I still need time to be able to now review those plans, go through those plans, certify the plans, and then send them back to the AAA sprinkler company. I'm very frustrated, Madam President.
If I may,
Can you use the microphone, please? Thank you.
and actually, it's just semantics. That's, I guess, what's troubling and frustrating to me as well. When we were here last time, I had indicated to the chief that the box in question, I was under the impression, because Tom Mello, who works for the town, had told me that it was not in. And the only way that I would know this is because this is information that I would not know. Tom said to me that the state, people in the state are beholden to one particular distributor because it's a particular box is prescribed by statute. Last time we were here, the 14th, Tom said to me he had called that afternoon and that he had been informed that the box was in. And I said, as soon as we leave here, I will call my client and we will get that box installed as soon as possible. And it did. It got installed the next day. I called my client as I left here that night, and in fact, it was installed the next day. Had I known the box was in sooner, it would have been installed sooner. So I disagree that it's frustrating. I wish the chief would look at it as you did what you said you were going to do, which was as soon as you found out the box was in, you would get it installed. And in fact, we didn't delay at all. It got worked on the following day. As for the plans, when we were here last, we had made representations that we thought the plans could be done within 2 weeks, which was last Tuesday. I saw the chief on Tuesday in district court, and at that time I informed him that we were running a little bit late. They're sort of complicated plans. It's a $60,000 sprinkler system. I told him at that point I didn't think they would be in until Thursday, maybe Friday. I'm not sure I see a big problem with the fact that they were there today at noon. Every effort's being done to get this done as quickly as possible. That box is in, it's installed, it's hooked up to the fire system, which is what the chief himself indicated was the primary thing to open the place. We're still not shooting for, once the plans are approved, we're under a 90-day time frame, and we will honor that. That's not a problem. We've already got the sprinkler company ready to go.
I was here 2 weeks ago, as you all were, and my recollection at the time were that the applicant had indicated, first of all, that they had dropped off a set of plans, although they were unstamped that very morning, and now we find out there was a lot more work, and even then, it was a representation they were going to get the plans to the chief so that he would have the opportunity to review them before he came back here for this meeting. So I share the chief's frustration on the lack of progress on this. It does seem to be that only the imminent deadline of closure results in getting something done. So I thought I needed to add that. That was my understanding too, that the plans were going to be here sooner. They'd already been dropped off that day. They didn't have a stamp on it, they would get
If
approved.
I may, that's wrong. That's just wrong. The representation that I made last time, and I remember it very clearly, was we dropped off a draft of the sprinkler system. And I represented that the reason that I had wanted to do that was the fire department said they needed input into the system. It's a complicated system. I instructed my client, drop off a draft, let them start taking a look at it. We are under a time frame. If they can give us some comment now before the final plans are done, let's get that comment. Because I had a conversation with the fire department that they would not look at them until they were stamped. And I said, I don't understand that. They're drafts. We're going to need your input anyways. If we can save some time, I instructed the client to drop them off so that we were ahead of the process and speeding the process up. So, Mr. Tights, I disagree with you. That's not the representation that I made at all. They were a draft plan. A draft plan.
I leave it to the council's own recollection. You were all here. You heard it. You all, I'm sure, have your own view of what was supposed to have been done at this point. And my understanding was, they were supposed to be ready with the other thing we talked about was the contract that has a start date. And we understand, all right, it can have a start date if we're waiting for the approval of the plans, but that it was going to specify in the contract 90 days completion. There's apparently a separate correspondence as to the completion, but there's not a signed contract to that effect.
If I may on that, the start date would be the day after the town approves the sprinkler system as approved. The end date would be 90 days from that day forward. That's what we've agreed to, that's what we put on record, that's what we told everybody.
And you have a contract that says that?
We have a fax from the sprinkler system company that says it'll take 4 to 6 weeks to get the system done once they start. So again, we're talking about semantics.
I don't think, please, I don't think we are talking about semantics, so let's leave that aside. We have some serious issues. We do. And I think the solicitor asked the question, do you have a contract?
We have a signed contract.
You have.
Yes.
And
We've shown that to everybody.
And does that contract doesn't have a completion date on it, does it?
There's a fax that follows the contract that says that they will complete the contract when they start within 4 to 6 weeks. We are under a ruling by this board to have it done within 90 days. That's our issue.
I'm a little confused. Do you have I'd like to know the answer to that question.
Madam President,
Is
I
there-
do have one
A-
document, a contract, does not have a start or end date on it. Its original date, this installation is based on a site visit of July 29th, 2008.
The council see that?
Absolutely, ma'am. Secondly, after we had our last discussion here at the last show cause hearing, there was a fax that ended up in the state fire marshal's office, did not end up in our office, which is dated October 14th. On that it says, once we get approvals and our mechanical permit and the sprinkler system will be completed and tested within 4 to 6 weeks, given any unforeseen problems that may occur. And if I may, I can give you copies of, but I need to have those back for the official record.
Kelly, can I ask, as far as the issue that's involved here, is the issue that, since we don't know, 4 to 6 weeks is from the start date, but since we don't know what the start date is that the issue, the problem with this that we're looking at?
Based on my feelings on this, Mr. Madeira, so simply, this was supposed to have been done back in July. They were supposed to have reached the deadline. We're now past that deadline. I, as the fire chief, am sitting out here in great liability because this facility is still operating. Something happens there, the liability is on I as the fire chief, because I have not brought them into compliance.
The 90-day period was from...
We have to give them time to build it. There's no
Right, but
question
that's
about
from
that.
when, though? When would you like to see?
Well, I guess that's kind of what's in debate here, is to, do you give them time to do it? Mine is that I just keep hearing one story after the other. If their contractor says 4 to 6 weeks, it's going to take them 4 to 6 weeks to build the system. There's no question about that. I need at least 10 days to be able to review the plans.
I'm a little disappointed because I left this meeting listening to Mr. Lippman tell us that there was no problem in meeting the deadline set forth as to have a plan to the fire chief, a stamped plan to the fire chief, with him to have enough time to review it prior to us getting back here this night. That's my recollection of what transpired, that evening. Was that you committed that your client could meet those deadlines.
We just seem to have a little bit of different recollection.
Well, okay, I sat.
Plans are in, they're stamped, the box, which.
Yeah, I sat and chaired that meeting in my recollection, and I am one who voted not to shut you down, but give you a date certain to have a completion of this work. And I still feel that we met 2 weeks ago, and 90 days was that time frame. But if you don't get the plans in on time, I think the time frame, the clock should be ticking, and that 90 days has probably already started in my eyes. And now it's the onus is on you to get it done by a date certain, and we should set that date certain even if we don't have that plan review back, because I don't believe the fire department's going to withhold that any length of time to try to retaliate. But I think we should set that date certain, and if the sprinkler system is not installed by the date certain, again, the license is revoked. The issue we had 2 weeks ago was until there was a firebox that rang directly to your station, you had a major concern.
Yes,
That
sir.
is, at least we're getting the response if there is something happen there, is going directly to you now. That was your major concern, and the other concern is to get this place sprinkled. We have other places and buildings in town that are still working on getting sprinklers that is beyond the July date. We're not here, we know they're working on it. And if this one is being worked on, and we've had our problems at deadlines, I think we put a deadline, and that deadline is where it is. And I was told that we should have the completed forms in, back under review in 90 days, and so we shouldn't be any more than 90 days from the meeting we're at now for that system to be complete. And if it isn't, they shouldn't have a license, because I don't want to extend it. I think we've actually extended it 2 weeks.
90 days from tonight?
That's my opinion.
That would be acceptable.
I'm just saying, but that's my opinion, is the clock is running. You were late in getting the plans in, so our review goes back. Yeah, I've been late.
Don, I am with you as far as setting a date certain. The only caveat to that would be to set that date from the moment our fire department approves the drawings. Because if those drawings for some reason are not acceptable, if the fire department finds a huge flaw in it or some major issue, they're going to have to go back and redesign. And that could take some time.
But that's not, I don't think that's our problem.
It's not our problem, but if we're setting a date certain,
But my point,
we might want to include something in there for approval from our fire
but I
department.
haven't seen the plans. I'm hoping that a set of plans wasn't given to the fire department that isn't going to be acceptable in order to buy more time to resubmit a set of plans. This is my fear is that the game is being played, and I don't want to play the game from either side. So a date certain from today, to me, this should have been, we should have had an accepted and approved set of plans by today. Had you gotten them to the chief in the time frame you told us 2 weeks ago, he would have had 10 days, probably, at least 10 days, to review the plans prior to this meeting.
If I got them to him last Tuesday,
By your
that's
statement.
7 days.
No, we met 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, you saw no problem in making the deadlines that were there about getting the plans submitted, so there was time for review prior to coming back
That
to
was
us.
last Tuesday was that deadline. So if I got to him Tuesday afternoon, we would have had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that's all, 3 days. Okay, I take strong exception to the idea that we would possibly present something that's to be refused. This is taking a lot of time. I just as soon not be here. I want to work and get this done. To suggest that we would do something to delay the process. I did offer to the chief earlier something to what Mr. Edwards has just said, that if the board feels that we delivered the plans 4 or 5 days late, as opposed to the last Tuesday's deadline, I would be happy to take that off of the date certain maybe 85 days, that's not a problem. I mean, I want to get this done, that's why we're here, so.
It seems to me we've got two issues. We've got this date certain issue, which is something, wherever we set it, I think everybody can agree on. The more important issue to me is I'd like to hear from the fire chief. If this is something that we consider, are you confident that there is not a safety issue going forward, or is there a safety issue? That was the issue that came up last time that I'm concerned with, is regardless of what's fair and all that, are we confident as a town that continuing to operate under the situation as it is today is a safe thing, it's something that's in the public interest?
Mr. Lippman is going to disagree with me. I do not, because I feel that, once again, we come up against another deadline. We were talking before of the fire alarm that would give us a little bit of a heads up, but then we would be moving forward on things. The door in the bar area that still swings the wrong way, the ramps are still there. They are making some changes on some of the wiring now. Yes, I will agree, they are trying to do work. But again, I come back to Mr. Madeira, it's the same situation. It seems the only way I can get action is when I come before this body.
I'm sorry.
I have, the contract that you gave to us, or this alleged contract, was dated August 12th. Now, it does not, as the town solicitor had said, have a start date. August 12th? And when did you receive this?
It should be, I'm not 100% sure what date. I'd have to go back through the actual timeline we have established
Okay.
as to when I actually did receive it. But it was prior to the last meeting.
I see. Without, okay, so that we don't know if it was sent back to the contractor or not. It's signed, but it's not, we have no evidence that it did go
Mr.
back.
Murphy, if I may, it has been sent back to the contractor because the AA Sprinkler is the one who's designed the plans and would not have done so unless we'd given them a signed contract. And we paid them $7,000 in order to design the sprinkler system plans, which have been, as the chief indicated, delivered today.
Chief, you need, how many days to review the plan?
I will do just like I did with the fire alarm box. They came in and they called me the next morning following that council meeting of the suspension of their license. 8:30 in the morning, I received a phone call. I had someone at their establishment that afternoon on overtime to program that box so there was no delay or inconvenience to their business. I will get these plans done within 1 week.
That's very quick, Chief.
Mr. Edwards, you know, we've taken a beating here. We've taken it, you know, every time that we've had a hearing, every time that there's been a court date, every time there's been something, it's cost my department overtime to get this done, so that we're not perceived, the municipality is not received as beating up on a business. And I don't want to put that out there, that we're trying to hold them back. And I find that incredibly frustrating to be told that we're looking at semantics. I don't believe we're looking at semantics.
I don't mean to take it the wrong way, Chief. I'm actually surprised and commend you for getting it done.
I will do what I have to do to
possible.
get them done.
Other municipalities are saying minimum 60 to 90 days for plan review. And that's what I'm hearing around the state, so.
I'll do my best to get them done. I mean, the state fire marshal is behind us. They have offered us help. I spoke with them today. I did not have them coming down because, again, it costs the state fire marshal's office overtime when they come down to testify. So I have spoken with them. They are going to offer us whatever assistance we can. We will try to get it done as quickly as we possibly can. But I don't want us being the one that's saying that we're delaying someone's business. Again, and that's how serious I believe the issue is.
Hence my question about, I mean, we should make this date certain from the time that our fire department actually has the approval. So they are not under the gun, and there's not going to be any
The problem that I
inference
see with that, though, is that puts the burden on us. And, you know, if they're not approved, we still have a facility that is out of compliance. And this could go on for several months, couldn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's why my suggestion is to set the date certain from today. And it should be 90 days from today. The plans were submitted, the chief says he'll review them in a week. If there's something substantially wrong with the plans, you know, we're just continuing the matter further.
Contractor
And I'm
says he can install in 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks, so I'm taking 30 to 45 days. So 90 days is twice as much as it takes to put it in, and I think that gives the chief 7 or 8 days, you know, to do it, and still give substantial time for the installation of that.
The chief and I have talked about this, about the idea of having an interim report, not waiting 90 days to see what happens, and to have an interim report in approximately 30 days, or 2 weeks, 4 weeks from now, 2 council meetings from now, to see where we are. The real question is whether you want to take action on the license before then, or continue to wait on that.
My position, as I said, I'll make a motion to set a date certain, 90 days from today, for the completion of the remaining work for them to remain open in business.
And could you also include, though, a status review at the November 27th
I would
meeting?
expect the status
Is that a legal matter, Mr. Councilor? Are we talking about a legal matter that you're going to advise the council on?
No, we're going to know whether or not the plan was approved.
Yes,
The work has been stopped.
I think the council should reserve, the right to suspend the license on November 27th if they haven't moved forward expeditiously. If, for example, if the fire chief returns it to them next week with problems, and come November 27th, they still haven't gotten it back to him again, then I think the town council should have the opportunity to suspend the license at that time.
I have no problem, but I'm saying that we're going to set a date of 90 days from tonight. If the work isn't completed, it's a suspension of the license. With the status report to be given in 2 weeks.
Is there a motion on the floor?
That is a motion. Yes.
Is there someone second?
A status report in 2 weeks, leaving open the question if the progress has not been made
To revoke the license.
to revoke the license.
Suspend the license.
Is there a second to that motion? For the purpose of discussion, I will second.
Chief, I just want to get back to the question again. Beyond the idea of the fact that this is, that revoking the license at this point seems to be, in your opinion, necessary to force this issue. Is that my
Yes, sir.
understanding you correctly? Beyond that, given that it's been operating for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, under the current circumstances, if those circumstances continue for another 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to
If
find
you
out...
want me to go on record to say that I'm concerned in the next 60 to 90 days that a life may be lost in there, yes, I am.
Well,
The best thing to make this safe is sprinklers, like they are required, and
There's no
I'm
question about
concerned.
that. What I'm trying to understand is the reason that for the last couple of weeks, we operated under that, and understanding, taking out the fact of whether it was under full compliance or not. I guess the question would be, if it was safe for those 2 weeks, is it simply just the extended period of time that's the main concern?
Yes, I'm concerned about any length of time that the establishment stays open and doesn't have the fire protection in place,
If I
as
may,
required.
The 90-day period was offered to me by the town. When I first met the fire department, I asked how long they wanted for us to install the sprinkler system, and they said that they would be comfortable with a 90-day period. I didn't argue with that. I said that that would be fine. The 4 to 6 weeks that came from the fax was actually not generated by me. It was generated by the sprinkler company, who was instructed by my client that although we had a 90-day period, we'd like to get this done as quickly as possible. So we're doing everything we can to get this done as fast as possible. We've
Mr.
done
Littman.
what the chief has asked us to do.
If I might interrupt you.
Certainly.
The chief, at our first hearing, but you did not attend, had advised this council that he has been working on this problem for 2 years. The first hearing we had, the day of that hearing, the applicant came before us on something that the chief had been asking for an extended period of time. The tactics have been dilatory. So don't please, do not sit there and tell that these deadlines have been suggested by the town. The evidence is entirely different.
All I said, Ms. Durfee, was that the 90-day period, I asked the fire department how long they would like in order for the installation of the sprinkler system. All I'm suggesting is I want the council to know, I didn't negotiate it. Whatever they said was appropriate, they said the 90 days, and I said that that was fine. So that was where I don't want the town to think that I tried to extend the period by any length of time. They offered that to me when I said what would be an appropriate period of time. I understand the importance, as when I left here last time, when I found out that the box was in, I told the chief I would call my client and we would get it done as quickly as possible, and it got done the next day. The chief stood here 2 weeks ago and said it was important, it was very important to get it in. And we got it in the next day after I was informed by Tom Mello that evening that he found out that the box was in. We got it done.
I wanted to put this in context, Mr. Lippman. 2 years. That's how long the chief and the fire department has been working on this issue.
Well, we're almost at the end, which I guess is a good thing, not a bad thing.
I'm not-
We're getting it done.
Yes.
I just want to clarify Mr. Boland's motion. You're talking about 90 days for all violations, is that correct? Not just the sprinkler, but the doors,
I'm talking
porch,
90
everything.
90 days to correct the violation.
All violations.
These other violations, should have been being worked on. They are not part of needing to have a set of plans approved or whatever. I mean,
But I just want to make sure that that's part of, that is
well,
what you're saying or not. Either way, just so that the
I gotta tell
applicant's on
you,
notice.
you know what? It's kind of irrelevant to me because we're going to be doing a reinspection of the business for a license that's going to come due. And I think the inspection's going to be in November
Yes, sir.
30th. So I'm looking at whether or not we make that as a requirement of this motion or not. They need to pass an inspection to get a license, and they're going to be the same issues they're going to run into. And our licenses are subject to meeting all legal requirements. So that issue is kind of, to me, will resolve itself. This is the issue that we need to know that it's done, and if it isn't done, they need to be closed until it is done. It's been represented that it can be done in that period of time. I don't want to extend that 90 days anymore. The plans got to you late, it comes off their end of the installation. That's my view of this, based on what was told to us, at our last meeting and so forth, and that's why I want to have the clock stop running today.
And also, you said for a status report in 2 weeks then?
Yeah,
Not-
right, our
or-
next council meeting, we should know that, we're going to know, if in 2 weeks, this plan has not been approved, then we're going to have trouble with the 90 days, and it may be time to say, the game's over, get it done now, and we'll see how quick you can get it done, because, it is the same thing. I think I've been probably as reluctant as anyone to see this business closed at all, understanding the fact that you need to generate income to be able to do repairs. If you shut down, you have no money, and if you were tight to go into it, it's even gonna take longer. But, I can only be pushed so far. I was led to believe that council was going to make sure these things happen, was gonna stay on top of it, and deadlines were gonna be met. Well, I don't think they were met to my satisfaction, but I'm still trying to be as flexible as possible and give them 90 days from today to complete the work. That's,
So that 90 days is provided that reasonable progress is being made?
yes.
The 90 days is not a guarantee that they have 90 days, it's only provided they're making reasonable progress?
Yeah, this
I want to make sure
process proceeds.
the council and the applicant know that your license can still be suspended in 2 weeks if you're not making reasonable progress to that 90-degree deadline, 90-day deadline.
And I'm assuming that would mean we would hear from the chief by next Monday.
It's going to be, yes, that's assuming that you're going to hear
If I
from the
hear from the
chief.
chief in 13 days, I don't think it's fair that...
If you hear from the chief in 13 days, you can come back here, and I'll be giving him the same speech I'm giving you tonight.
Just want to make
Okay?
sure.
No,
that's all.
I'm, maybe. Maybe. I may not be here. I tell you what, I will be in the audience.
Madam President. To be sure, that's all. If we hear back from the chief within a week, we'll respond.
And you want to put November 10th in your calendar to be prepared to come back here to deal with it one way or the other. hopefully
I can
positively.
assure you, if the chief says he'll have a set of plans to you back in 7 days, he'll have a set of
Just
plans back to you in
want
7
To make
days.
sure, that's all. Is it possible to, if I can try to save my client some money, that if the plans are approved, meaning on both ends, and the chief has spoken to the contractor, and the contractor has indicated a start date, that we could avoid not coming back in 2 weeks?
No,
You'll be here.
absolutely not.
Okay.
I definitely want to make sure this is heard by whomever, if someone has an opportunity to look
I
at this.
think what he's suggesting, Jay, and I'm not opposed to what he's saying, if the fire chief comes back to us, who's here at a meeting, comes to the meeting on the 10th and says, we have the signed contract with the start-finish date, the plan's approved, I'm going to take that as being the progress we're looking for. I think if these gentlemen have to be back before us, the license is in serious jeopardy. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm not correcting you, I think it would be better just to continue it. Also,
Yeah.
from a legal framework, what we'd effectively be doing is continuing, what you did the last time is you suspended it on the box and you continued it on the sprinkler system, and I would suggest continue it on the sprinkler system, so we don't have to re-notify them of a new show cause hearing and have them back here no matter what.
I understand.
All right, we have a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to say a few words. if I
Sure,
could.
sure.
I'd like to go back to the chief's point about being frustrated. I wonder if there's anybody that's just as frustrated as you are, other than me. I'm more frustrated than you are. We've got a state law that makes firefighters, policemen, architects, civil engineers, and so the law we're working with, unfortunately, in my opinion, is defective. And that's why we end up with these kinds of results. With regards to your particular question, too, it's difficult to support your position if you've been at this for over 2 years. That's difficult to do. But I think we need the business. We need you as a taxpayer, and we need you as a license payer, and all that goes with that. My only thought is, after listening to the discussion, isn't there something else we could do that would be more horrendous than what we're already doing? For example, should we revoke all licenses in town right now, today, who don't meet the fire code? Wouldn't that be fair? And here I am saying, that's horrendous, that's ridiculous. I think the law contains a doctrine which is called the reasonable man standard, and that's what I try to employ in cases like this. I think, to put the chief, at ease a little bit, if the council decides to take action which is contrary to your recommendation, you're no longer liable, the council is.
That's correct.
So, for what it's worth, I think we need to get the state law changed so that it's more reasonable, and maybe can be more pro-business at that point. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. We have a motion and a second on the, is there any further discussion from anyone?
I'm sorry, could I just repeat what I have for a motion in case it's not what you think you're voting on? It's done.
You want to use the
Can you use your
microphone?
microphone, please?
Sorry, it's Don's motion that they be allowed 90 days from today to complete the remaining work to allow them to stay open in business, or suspension of the license, a status report in 2 weeks, and that's on all violations, and they must be making reasonable progress. Am I missing anything?
No. I think, the status hearing is to see if there will be
A further suspension
a
of the
further
license.
suspension of the license.
2 weeks, yes.
Rescind the motion one more time.
You seconded the motion.
I did second the motion.
Give us that motion one more time.
I will. That the council allow 90 days from today to complete the remaining work to allow business to remain open, to allow open in business, or suspension of the license with a status report in 2 weeks on all violations, and reasonable progress must be made, or further suspension.
All right, I think that's the substance of,
If I could just get, what, just so that I understand, what is it that the council would like to see in 14 days?
An approval, well, I want to see, I would hope to see an approved set of plans and a start date,
Okay.
if not already having the work started.
Yeah, in 2
Because,
weeks.
because
They
in,
should have the
Right,
approved
we-
drawings back, and they should have already started work.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's to me, the progress is, if this is approved, they're going to start it right away to be able to complete it within the 90 days. They're only going to have 80 if it takes 10 to get started.
I think that's, well, I think that could be worked out with the chief.
I'm just throwing something at Madam President of amending it to the point that if the plans were approved and it was physically started within 2 weeks, that you wouldn't have to come back before us if it was physically started in 2 weeks. And I would amend that motion, that if the sprinkler system was physically started in 2 weeks, that you would have to report back to us in 2 weeks, that you would report back to the council in 30 days.
I basically said that, and I think it was
I didn't hear that in there.
My thing was that they didn't have to come back in 2 weeks if it was started, and our council
didn't
said
hear
that
that in
he
there.
thought it was imperative they show up in 2 weeks.
I didn't hear that in there. If it was physically started, I didn't hear that in there.
You didn't. It's not in there.
If it was physically started in 2 weeks.
We understand. So,
They would not have to come back, they would have to come back in 30 days. That's an amendment.
Madam President, may I comment on the amendment?
yeah, please.
It's not just a sprinkler system, there are a lot of other things.
But
I
every-
feel much more comfortable coming back and giving you a 2-week progress report, to be able to say to you, this is where we are.
But just to let you know, Chief, they have to renew their license in 30 days.
On November
Everything
30th,
has to be
yes.
done. Whether he knows it or not, everything has to be done by the end of November to renew their license, or they're all done. Whether they realize it or not, they're out of business in 30 days. The end of November, they're all done. They're out of business.
Okay, we
Okay,
we
thank
heard
you.
all that.
Their license needs to be renewed.
All right, now,
So I don't understand what you just said.
So if you're not substantially done, you may be, all your inspections, everything else has to be done.
So if they were to start the
you
sprinkler
need
system
to
the
do-
first
you
week
need
of
to-
November, and it takes 6 weeks.
As
into
long as you're
December,
working, all your other things need to be done. Everything else needs to be done.
If they start the sprinkler system the
Then
first
you will
week of
get your
November,
license renewed. But everything else needs to be done as part of your normal inspection for the renewal of your license.
okay, let's,
Work on it.
my own feeling is that
I've
even
made an
though,
amendment. I've made an amendment that as long as it's physically, as long as it's started within 12 days, that they would not have to come back.
I would oppose that amendment only because of this. We're gonna have a new council here in a couple of weeks. I think they should have a chance to hear this firsthand, to weigh in on it, because this has obviously been an ongoing thing. Where I'm having a problem here is if we're being told that the chief isn't comfortable with this operating as things currently stand, yet it operated for the last 2 weeks, it operated for a period before that. So there's some gray area here. I'm comfortable with this, with having the 2-week status report, operating as safely as possible if they need that extra detail, whatever else is required of them to operate in the meantime. At that 2-week point, that status report come in, and if you're not satisfied that enough progress has been done, that this is going to be completed, as Paul points out, if they're going to have this done in order to get the license done, the 90 days becomes irrelevant.
Well, the sprinkler system won't be done, Brian, but up on the same point, all their other building stuff has to be done for the renewal of their license.
But they're going to have significant progress on the sprinkler
On the
system,
sprinkler-
or they won't be meeting legal requirements, and I think that's where, what I don't want to see this become 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks and I'm sure that's your frustration. I think we're talking about this as a pretty drop-dead deadline in 2 weeks, and hopefully the next council will continue that, but that's the idea here, is that if we've operated the last 2 weeks under this
The
iffy
contract says
situation.
4 to 6 weeks to get it done, and that's why I said if they can show that at least it started
you know, and I think the fire chief's been on top of it, and that's why I think 4 to 6 weeks, you know, giving him 6 weeks, I think as long as it's showing that it's going, and, you know.
Well, I must say, this is a person in a corporation that seems to do well with deadlines. And for that reason, I think it is important, even though it will be a new council. Mr. Bolin and I may be sitting out there in the conference, but we'll be here.
I know I'll be out there,
okay?
well, maybe not,
But-
I'll watch it on TV.
But I do think that, given the track record, we should hold their feet to the fire, have them come back. And if you get up and say, work is progressing, that's fine. And if it isn't, the council can act. So I think, Paul, just given the track record here, I would support the coming back in 2 weeks.
Very well.
But you have a motion? And there's a second?
No, I haven't.
No second to that motion.
The motion was seconded, wasn't it?
No, this is Paul's.
Mine has not been seconded.
Okay. So we will proceed. If there's any further discussion before we vote on Mr. Bowler's motion. Any further questions? All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed to that motion? 1, 2. All right, 4 to 2, with 1 abstention. Okay, now we will go back.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Chief. Everybody should have a red line copy now of the junkyard. We'll go back now and this will be a continuation of the junkyard changes.
Junkyard.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I apologize on behalf of myself. I don't know why we didn't get you the corrected copy, but
On behalf of myself and the public clerk. Did you hear the backup, Laura?
Okay.
just for, you've got it in front of you, it's a little confusing because some of the stuff that got moved around looks like it's new. The stuff that's really new is the definition of junk, which is actually from state law, was added here. The license required, that was moved in as a first thing in the beginning. It's not new, but it's right there at the beginning, the license required. And then the next new stuff is really the fines were increased from 100 to 500 and 500 to 1,000 as the range for the first offense. The term of the license was moved to November, which is part of the idea of trying to get the licenses all at the same time. And I'll let the police chief correct me, but I think when we get into the substantive stuff, the key things are under 6269, the required records, that they be kept for at least 1 year from the date of the purchase or barter, I think is one of the key things that right now, we don't have a requirement that those records be kept there. And the other really significant change is the purchase from minors, that they're not allowed to have the purchase from minors, and the chief will talk to that. And a minor change was the 7-day holding period is 7 business days. Went from 7 days, made clear it was 7 business days that items must be kept. I think those are the major changes, Chief. Did I miss anything major?
Yes, 62-68, identification of seller.
Oh, okay.
Merchandise.
I have some reservations with this ordinance, right from the get-go, because I think we're putting junkyards and automobile junkyards in the same article, and they don't fit. It doesn't, our conditions required for issuing a junkyard license or automobile junkyard, no one is in compliance with this article that currently holds town or state licenses. I mean...
There's a grandfather clause in the...
No, I'm just saying, but, it's to be operated entirely, and maintained entirely within a building.
There's a grandfather clause. I read the whole thing, and I found exactly the same items as an issue, and if you read further down in the ordinance, there's a grandfather clause in there that allows all existing licensed junkyards to continue.
it just creates, I think it just creates problems, for us. I mean, when we have something that,
To keeping records?
well,
Yeah, I think it's under
Well-
62, 6059, Don.
Specifically, what,
well, they're keeping the records. If the junkyards that are taking in or buying, automobiles from a salvage pool, not taking in, these automobile yards, most of them are not taking in scrap metals for resale. Some of them, I know one that, I only know one in town that does that.
the only thing we're finding is with the titles, some of the, for example, some of the scrap yards are not requiring titles from cars. In Rhode Island, over 10 years, of course, they don't have to have that. But in Massachusetts, all cars are required. Some cars are being picked up on the side of the road, some people may be restoring a car, that's being taken from their yard and just scrapped, because the price was around $400 for a junk car.
Yeah, they were.
It's dropped drastically, yes. But catalytic converters are still a valuable commodity.
Yes.
But
But what I'm saying, but the buying of this stuff, but we're gonna
Besides
be,
the whole ordinance, is there anything specific that you
well,
don't
what I'm
like?
saying is, when we talk about requirements of, the purchases and so forth, I mean, the dealers who are dealing with, what are you gonna require from them when they're buying their automobiles from the pool
Well,
mostly?
it's not so much the automobiles, we're concerned with, we're having any residence or any building that's vacant.
Okay.
We're having people go in there, cut the water meters off at the base of
No,
the
no,
building.
I understand the copper issue, et cetera,
Okay,
but do we have a facility in town, how many facilities do we have in town that are buying those types of material?
We have 7 yards that fit under this specific ordinance.
But how many of
Understanding what
them?
you're saying about the automobile portion of it, but unfortunately, it's all grouped together here.
No, what I'm saying is that they're not buying, the junkyards I know are not having somebody come off the street with a load of copper, weighing copper and buying the copper. They go to A&E Metals in Fall River. They're going to those kind of yards. I think South Shore on Booger Marsh Road is the only one I know that's buying cars off the street and
Correct.
maybe scrap metals off the street. So, I mean,
But without an ordinance.
well, no, I understand it, but I just, somebody's already, the reason I asked this, the junkyard's already been approached, made sure their licenses were, visible. Okay, some of them had them in an office and they made them, no,
But without an ordinance.
I understand that, but I think our ordinances have to match what we have, or we need to pare out of our ordinances the type of operations they are. I'm saying these two should not be lumped together under this one ordinance. I think they should be paired out somehow so that we identify the operation that could possibly be the problem, and if somebody starts doing that, we should have, I think there should be a separate license for a automobile junkyard and a scrap facility. And I think they are two separate and succinct differences in there. When they scrap a vehicle, they have somebody come in and crush a complete vehicle and send it out, and there's a record of that. It's not like somebody bringing in a bucket of copper or 10 catalytic converters and so forth as they do at A&E Metals. And I'm just looking at, maybe it's time to split this up into two. We can identify,
I don't have a problem with
What
that,
they are and what they
but I
should be.
do have a problem with the fact that manhole covers are taken from nearby cities
Yeah.
and being scrapped here, catalytic converters being scrapped here, and we want to give the officers a fighting chance to get some evidence,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm looking for.
no, and I have no problem with that,
It needs to
Chief.
stop for now.
All I'm saying is, I think that we need to have a couple of different licenses for different types of operations instead of lumping things into one that don't fit.
Don, that is such a, that would be a very,
Fine line.
not just a fine line, but it would be a complete rewrite of our ordinances. This is sort of a stopgap thing to kind of stop some of the practices that could, I'm not saying, that, but would certainly help the police officials. If at some point down the road we want to have a massive rewrite of junkyards and, scrap metal dealers, so be it. But I think that we should address these things now. And certainly, I think this does this, although I did have a technical question, Mr. Kites. On the exceptions, 6257, I'm looking at 6260 at this point?
Yes.
6257, 1, 2, 3A, and 3B. Do I,
62 what?
62, there's a reference to 6257, 1, 2, 3A and 3B,
62,
and
67.
62, 5A.
62, 67 is
Do we have
display
such
of license.
citations?
Oh, I think we, well, yes, well, 6258, A, 1, 2, 3, that's the stuff about where it has to be located. And that doesn't apply to the ones that are grandfathered in. And 6257, though,
And then there's some,
we don't, because we've renamed, we made 57 the license.
Those should be changed.
So,
We're saying that a junkyard license is only available to somebody who can conduct his business within a building? They're not allowed to have the yards as they now do?
if they're coming in for a new one, that's correct.
Well, they can't, because it's, it's a prohibited
That's
use
ridiculous.
in our ordinance. So
So
why
we
do we
cover
have to
both
have,
ways.
why do we have to have a licensing procedure for something new and have categories when it's non-existent in every zone in the town?
Belts and suspenders.
Does that mean 61 doesn't?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a double precaution. It gives you some leverage. For example, if someone comes in and wants to have some changes with an existing junkyard, it gives you some leverage and say, okay, we'll let this happen and that, but you're gonna put it all within a building. That's what I've seen happen in other communities.
okay, Andy, you want to, yeah,
Without pre-existing non-conforming use and expansion. We're creating redundancies that, you know.
The problem is with the...
I would direct your attention to
That's what the
6258.
problem is.
All the junkyards with which I'm familiar don't operate in a building.
6260 is an exception. It's
Yes.
the exemption of all that.
Yeah.
yeah,
6260.
Go on
It's
next
the new
page.
ones.
Right.
The current junkyard is
yeah.
exempt.
The others are grandfathered, as Jay keeps saying.
Right.
Exception as to existing licensed automobile junkyards.
Yeah. 57, 1, 2, 3A, and 3B.
Yeah, we'll correct the subsection reference there.
6257.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, they need to be corrected,
Right.
okay.
And the 6258 would not have the small letter A either.
No,
No, I'm sorry, it would, yes, no,
Well,
that's
it doesn't-
59. No, it would be just the, it would be.
No
just-
small letter A.
Yeah, in fact, it's the correct ones are the 6257 with just changing it to 58.
Or you just take out the little A's.
Yeah, either way. And basically, all that's saying is, the one thing that they're not exempted for is the screening requirement. That they're, even if they're a previous non-conforming use, they're still required to have the 6-foot fence,
okay.
or other natural
This is on
objects.
August 1st business. The exceptions. The exceptions are for people who are licensed on or after August the 1st, 1965. Section 6260.
On or before,
On or before 65.
yes. If they had the license on that date, then they're allowed to continue.
Because those are the ones that were pre-existing.
And anybody,
And that's our existing ordinance,
It's existing ordinance.
Hannibal, that's
Pre-existing.
not a change.
That goes back to 1967 at
Yeah,
least.
when junkyards really were a problem in the town. I mean, they were a major issue. Okay, is there anybody who wishes to be heard from the public on this matter? No. Mrs. Black.
Yes, I'd just like to say, when I was out of the zoning board recently, this issue came up where a man was going to put it enclosed to make it more acceptable by DEM and everyone else, and he gave his presentation, and he was going to put it back on his land, and then the question came up with the expansion of the non-conforming use, after they had gone through the whole process, and then they debated about that for quite a while, but he did get it, but that did come up, because he was going to enclose everything.
Okay, thank you. All right, is the council ready for a vote on this?
We'll close the hearing.
Is there a motion on the floor?
To close the hearing.
Pardon me?
So to still,
We did open the public hearing. I did ask if anybody wishes to be heard, but nobody raised their hand, including Janice Gomes. So, we will consider this closed public hearing. Council is ready for a vote on this. Anybody wants to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the revised junkyard and junk dealers ordinance, and with the amendments to 6260 as put forth by the solicitor.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Abstaining? Two. Okay. Just for the, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief.
I will make, once the final revisions are made, I'll make certain that all the appropriate businesses have a copy.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Lost my place here. Thank you. Okay, we have, again, sitting as the Board of Licensing Commissioners, we have a request by William Shepherd for a vitrilling license for a business at 14A Stafford Road.
Motion to approve meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
Although, any further discussion?
Is there anyone here representing the business? Is there anybody here representing the business?
I didn't see him here.
I just wonder what they're going to sell.
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs and ice cream,
Hot dogs and ice cream.
just seasonal item.
Where does it say that?
It says it in the package.
Ice cream, hot dogs.
On the agenda request.
Beer and wine.
Second page, go to the next page. Right here.
Okay, the motion has been made, seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item, Town Administrator, appointment to the Housing Board.
The Housing Board currently has an opening, and I'm recommending that the council appoint Elaine Nearpass to the Board of Commissioners of the Tiverton Housing Authority. That also comes with the recommendation of the other board members on the Housing Authority.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to have the council consider holding this off to a date to be determined in order to maybe garner more names. We could have at least an official interview with the people before us as we've had in the past.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand, please.
It's fine.
Motion carries.
To continue to win, understand?
Well, we probably need
Get
a
more names.
Publicize.
Yeah, we need,
Advertised,
yep.
just recently advertised.
That has been advertised, Nancy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Town Administrator, next item is the release of the carry-forward funds.
I request that the council carry forward or release the carry forward of funds in account 098-943 townwide GIS mapping, $28,215, and 214-730 computer upgrade, $15,831. These issues are coming to pass, and we need to make payments.
Where is the work, what's the progress of the work on the townwide GIS mapping?
It's continuing. I don't have a report on exactly as to where it is, but I can certainly have that for the next meeting.
I think when we're going to release the funds, the carry-forward funds for this, we should at least have a status report about where we are in the progress of getting this mapping done, and before we release the $28,000 to pay for it. I mean, I know we had put monies aside for 2 or 3 years so we could have enough funds to get it done.
Then we can separate it.
Well, I know, but I'd just like to know what the status is. Have they started this mapping? Are they a third done, a half done?
They have started it. Work is in progress. How far along it is, I'm not sure at this point. But the work has started.
Do we have how the payments are to be made so that, I mean...
Yes, we do. I just don't have that with me at the moment.
Is that account 098-943, is that a current account?
Yes.
So we're putting that money into
into the budget, back into the budget, that's all.
Well, the balance in it,
We've never used any money.
well, no, I see this, but I'm looking at the carry forwards, and I'm asking if there's a current account. Because with a carry forward, that accounts in a number, is that number still an active number? Are we taking this money and putting it into an active account for this year's budget
Yes,
under GIS mapping?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's the second item on this list.
No, that's what's in there from
So what is the
original
council's
carry
pleasure
forward.
on this?
Yeah, I
This is a
understand.
carry forward.
Understand.
Okay,
Okay.
is this,
You see where I'm going?
okay. What is the council's pleasure on this?
I move to transfer $28,215 from the carry forward account to the townwide GSI mapping account.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Raise your right hand. And we are holding the release of those funds, or?
Well, if they're in the current budget, then they can be released as necessary. That's why I was asking if there was an operating account, because we have, the statement we were given was showing us a carry forward accounts column. And I'm asking if there was still an account, 943, in the current budget, because I don't have my list, so that we're putting it in the
It is.
same.
There is an.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're putting it into this year's account, which allows us to pay as necessary from that account.
We'll do it. Okay, moving on, computer upgrade. This is for the treasurer's reports?
Yes.
This is the money that was spent for the new program?
This is part of it, yes.
Okay.
Is council ready for a motion on that?
I move its approval.
Second.
Although, any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Motion carries unanimously. Councilor Carroll?
Thank you very much. Madam President, council members, it was a constituent had asked me, just so we can have an open discussion as to what items are actually being taken to and accepted at Rhode Island Resource Recovery. I guess someone was looking to possibly do some collecting of plastic bottles and cans, I guess, at the high school or one of the middle schools. And I guess they had called Resource Recovery, and Resource Recovery said that they were not accepting bottles and cans from the town of Tiverton. And I guess that kind of raised some questions. So I just felt that I would put that on there because I know that our bottles and cans must be going there, and I just wanted to put it on there for some clarification. So hopefully when we start getting information like that, I just wanted to make sure that we are getting the right message out to the citizens of Tiverton, and I just felt that, this needed to be clarified one way or another. So, Jim?
For the year 2007, we sent 819 tons of paper to Rhode Island Resource Recovery. We also sent 705 tons of bottles and 10 tons of cans for a total of 1,534 tons of recycled materials, for which we received $43,581 in the month of August. Going forward, we are still sending all three items to Resource Recovery. In addition to that, the Recycling Committee is working with the school department, because the school department had a nonprofit organization, an organization for special needs that they were giving their recyclables to. But at this point, the special needs group does not want anything other than paper. So now we are bringing the recyclables from the school department to our landfill to be transferred to Resource Recovery.
Okay, so it is going to our landfill, but it's not being buried at our landfill?
No, it's not being buried.
Okay. So once it goes to our landfill, what does it do when it gets there? Is it going into bins? Is it going into?
It's going into bins.
Gets transferred.
It gets transferred there, okay.
Okay. Because I just, because I guess there was a misconception out there or miscommunication, I guess, especially when a phone call was made to Resource or Rhode Island Resource Recovery, they said that they were not getting that, and I just wanted to make sure, because I don't want the citizens of Tiverton, thinking that, that we are not sending bottles and cans to them, and thinking that, why are they separating it, and.
This is the first year we received a grant of that size, I believe. And it's very important, if we underscore anything, is that it is money to the town. $43,000 pays for GIS mapping, it buys a police cruiser, it helps the tax rate. And people who really, I can't stress that enough, and I know the recycling landfill committee.
The other thing important on the recycling, and I think we need to keep emphasizing it, is whenever they're allowing, as you look on the bottom of containers, what containers are acceptable, to Resource, they all got that little triangle with a number in it, and what numbers are currently accepted?
Currently only 1 and 2.
1 and 2?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So any container on the bottom that has a 1 or a 2 can go into your recycle bin. And I think it's important to educate people, because I think there's a lot of things going in the trash that can be recycled because they just don't understand it.
Yeah, good, Joe.
We should say at every meeting.
Yeah.
Right, and before you move off this
Yeah, we'd
agenda
like to
item,
clarify this
connected
issue.
with this, we've got the contract going forward with Resource Recovery for the delivery of the recyclables, which Mr. Edwards was kind enough to use his expertise in going through, and I've since reviewed. Essentially, it's their standard contract, but with the solid waste, which we don't deliver, with those items crossed out. The rest of it, we're agreeing to their terms as far as the recyclables, which we have been doing, and also the other items, so that they will take mattresses, tires, and white goods as well at their standard costs, or the lower costs, provided we send them all of our recyclables.
One of the things that we could ask Mr. Edwards to do when he emerges at the General Assembly is to find out why we can't recycle for numbers 4 and 5. Okay? And because there's a lot of 4 and 5 plastics, so.
Yogurt containers are 5.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people eat yogurt now.
It may not be the
Yogurt
first
containers.
item,
I don't know why.
but one would hope that we could get that settled.
So I would ask for a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the agreement as modified.
We don't have a copy of that. I mean, we had one at one point.
Yeah,
Right.
That's basically just what we had with those
It's the
struck out.
standard contract with the stuff about solid waste struck out. Otherwise, it's what you had. All it is striking out numbers 2, 3, and 4, which dealt with the solid waste, and the part of number 6, which dealt with how they were going to bill you for the solid waste.
And is that the document that specifies the recycling and the rates or whatever we're getting
Yes.
paid and all that?
Exactly, what they're going to, what we have to pay, including for the tires and so forth, and what they would pay us, and the percentages, yes. It's the same document with only the municipal solid waste.
And what's the
stuff.
length of the contract?
It's
3
a
years.
3-year contract.
Has it been signed by the Resource Recovery Corporation?
No,
they-
we sign it first, and then we send it on to them.
All right, is there a motion that would like to be made by the council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. All those opposed? Yes,
Yes, I was the one that contacted Counselor Carroll.
yes.
This started out with a proposal from one of the middle school students to recycle cans at the middle school, and apparently they only do cardboard. And they were trying to look into finding out why they didn't do bottles and cans. And what I found out, I contacted Dave Boderi at Rhode Island Resource, and he said that they weren't getting bottles and cans up there. And he's the coordinator, and I couldn't understand that.
They got 1,500 tons of our stuff last year, so they're getting something from us.
Yeah, what I'm finding out is that,
Maybe he doesn't think that they're getting it specifically from the school department?
no, he told me they didn't get it from Tiverton. And I told him I was putting my bottles and cans in my newspaper out every day.
Maybe we can hold it and get another $43,000 next year.
Well, I guess they base what the towns get on how much we send them in waste, but because we have a landfill, we get a flat rate.
Ours is measured in the amount we bring them in recyclable.
And that's why I wanted to put it on here, because they gave Mark misinformation, and when Mark called me, I said, if they're giving him misinformation, imagine what they're giving out to other people also. I know we're all out there recycling, and I don't want people to get that, get under the impression, well, let's not separate stuff anymore. If they're not taking it, then throw it in the landfill. That's not the fact. Please continue to recycle. We do send it there, and it is important to us. We get money back.
Call DPW for this question.
Oh, they take it from the schools?
From the school, if you heard what Jay just said, from the school, it's going up to our landfill. So we're taking it from there, and it's being transported up.
They're throwing it away right now.
The only other issue with the school department, and we've been trying to work with them, and I understand that the school department hasn't been breaking their stuff out. It's not the fact that they're not sending it, they're just not breaking it out. And they have been breaking out, I understand, their paper and cardboard, they have been breaking out bottles and cans.
That's what started this whole thing, we're trying to get the bottles and cans. I couldn't understand why I have to put I put my bottles and cans out on the street every week. Yet some student proposed this at the middle school, and we can't get it done.
Hopefully, you put them into the some type of recycle bin. I'm sure we can even schedule a truck to come by and pick it up.
They won't. I called Patriot, they won't. It's not part of
Okay,
the
It's not in the contract.
Patriot, but we can talk to Patriot because we have a contract with them.
Yes.
And as far as where we put, and I think our contract says they'll pick up from Tiverton.
I know, but the school has had a separate contract.
They told me that was separate, and we would have to renegotiate the contract. The school would have to renegotiate the contract.
You separate them, and we'll make sure they get the resource picked up.
I'm sure, Mark, thank you very much. I'm sure that's something that the administrator will be working with the school department with, and, as a matter of fact, I talked to the school department as late as this afternoon regarding this issue. Yep. And we are working on a program. We will get them recyclable, and we will get them up to Rhode Island Resource Recovery.
Just had a quick question. Is it okay to approve the contract if it wasn't specifically on the agenda?
Well, I think it
Under
was
the
at a prior
discussion
time.
of,
It's on under discussion of recycling program, and in fact, the item was discuss recycling program within the town and what items are taken to or accepted at Rhode Island Resource Recovery Board. I mean, it's not a rush, it's November 30th, we have to get it back. It could be continued. I thought we got everybody here, it would make sense to do it now while we have Mr. Newberg. But the council
So you continue from here.
Well, I think we'll take that, we'll accept it.
But we're always glad to have that. We'll see. Okay, town admin.
So we have a motion then. If you're okay with it, then can we have a...
We already voted on it.
Yeah, sorry.
Hand
Sorry.
to the administrator.
Okay, now we're gonna move on, folks, to the meds plan.
It's about time.
You got 2 minutes, chief.
Not a problem. This is my present to Mr. Carroll for his last evening. He discussed this before, he brought it up. We had some problems getting it through with people that, well, let's just say, we got it done. It's a 79-page document. You should have a copy of it. We scored a 99, which is the highest so far in the state, and we'll be looking to run a plan on it, or run an actual drill on it this fall. So my present to Mr. Mr. Carroll for leaving, sorry, Don. Mr. Carroll for leaving.
Congratulations for the outstanding job on this. A lot of work went into this. You started on this a couple of years ago with some volunteers. It broke down. The volunteers went away because of some miscommunications, and with your due diligence, you got some of them people back online again, and you got a 99% on it. And I say congratulations. A lot of hard work and a lot of hours went into this. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chief, you don't have a couple of extra minutes where we can squeeze in some brain surgery, do you?
I think I can put it in the final addendum of that if you wish.
They were gonna do a transplant, but the monkey refused.
As long as we don't get a test on it, Chief. Thank you very much for that. Okay, Chief Blakey, Town Administrator, we have the next request permission to purchase two.
Request permission that the council approve the purchase of two 2009 Dodge police vehicles. They were the best buy, and we have $46,000 appropriated for this, and we were able to come in just under it.
Is there any questions from the council?
I just had one quick question, Madam President. Your price for these two cruisers, Chief, is that with or without the warranty?
The price is actually $22,503 for each car. Budgeted for the financial town meeting was $49,000, and I'm still working on the extended warranty.
Okay, thank you.
This price is without the answer.
Council ready for a motion on this?
Make a motion that we accept the request for the two Dodge Chargers at $22,503 per vehicle.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Now, we have reached the town administrator, announcement, comments, and questions.
Let me first just give you an update on the gas situation that we were dealing with last week. As of 3 p.m. yesterday afternoon, there were still 28 homes without gas. And the reason for that was that the gas company could not get in. So they're still working on it, and hopefully by this evening it'll be complete. The second thing is per council instruction, I did meet with Superintendent Rarick, and he will be sending us a report on the old ranger in Notwood schools. The report has not yet been received. Juvenile Hearing Board. We are looking for civic-minded volunteers to serve on the Police Department's Juvenile Hearing Board panel. The purpose of the board is to review the circumstances of certain non-violent offenses committed by youths and to order sanctions and reparations as an alternative to their cases going to court. We are looking for 3-year terms. Not all applicants will have a 3-year term initially because we do have to stagger the terms. It should be known that we will be doing a background check, and also that they will be required to attend 1 meeting per month.
Before you go on to the next item, you indicated in the beginning of that reading that this was the Tiverton Police Department's Juvenile Hearing Board. I thought it was the town of Tiverton's.
Okay, it's the town of Tiverton. I stand corrected. Town of Tiverton. Just a reminder, November the 1st, between 9 and 1, TVs and e-waste will be picked up at the highway garage. Additionally, there will be 1 yard waste pickup this fall, and that will be the week of 11/17 through 11/21. We will only accept yard waste in paper bags, not in plastic. One other item regarding the Department of Public Works, spent fluorescent bulbs are considered to be a hazardous waste. Anyone having these articles to dispose of should call the Department of Public Works at 625-6760. Thank you.
Council, any? Yes.
I had a couple of things. One of them was, we had the letter from Mr. Spencer regarding the wind power options and the RFP, and I just, if we could maybe, he's looking for some guidance in terms of how to go forward, and in reading his letter, it seemed that maybe we were talking about different things, and maybe the terminology RFP was my incorrect when we did this last time. What I think we were looking for, from what we talked about last time, was more of maybe even a letter of inquiry to some of these companies in terms of who they are, what they offer, whether they'd be interested in coming to Tiverton, and just some basic numbers in terms of how they operate, what would they require us to put money up front, that type of a thing, just to see what's being offered out there, as opposed to, I think what Mr. Spencer was looking for is a much more formal type of thing where we were ready to go out for some type of a bid, and I don't think we're at that point yet. What I'd like to see is just to have this information available in terms of what companies would do it, whether there'd be money up front. A lot of the information we got from the Allco presentation, if we could get that from the other companies so that the next council coming in at the point where they may want to decide go forward with this, will have all that information in a folder and they can look at it and see what companies are providing it, who's offering what, and do an apples to apples comparison.
Ryan, I thought where we were going, I also read his memo, and we should be saying to Mr. Spencer that we're looking for people to use the ALCO, shall we say, method. We're not putting any model. We're not putting money up front. We want to know if there's any other companies that will come to Tiverton under those same circumstances, where they provide all of the cost and we negotiate a contract. And I think that's what we're looking for, and that's the kind of proposal we were talking about putting forward. We are not in a position to start looking at spending, the 1.2 million or whatever the numbers are, to generate our own energy and own the equipment. We're looking for somebody to provide equipment, and work a contract with us. And I think that's where we were at, and I think we need to relay that to Mr. Spencer so he moves forward on that.
Well, that's why I brought it up, because he was looking for a lot of information on, answers on things we haven't even got to.
But I think that's the simplest answer to tell him, is that we want to put together a proposal basically mirroring what Alco came and said they could provide, and see if there's any other companies wishing to proceed in the same direction, to see if we have options of companies to deal with. And that was basically what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Madam President, I don't have any copy of that letter of correspondence to the council.
Yeah.
I think, Mr.,
I'll provide her with a copy.
okay.
I have an
Next item.
additional copy.
Yeah, just had one. Go ahead, Brian. Just had one more thing regarding the charter amendments on the ballot next week. Everyone should have received, or should be in the process of receiving, the booklet that Nancy put together, which is a very good summation of things. Also, the full text of the charter amendments was available online. Now, someone had called me today and said that they weren't available. I don't know if they've been taken down, but if we could check with... If we can check with the webmaster, just make sure that maybe they're just not on the front page anymore, but if we can make sure that they're readily available to people. And the other question someone had asked me was regarding a sample ballot, whether the town had them, and I don't believe we do, but I know that the Rhode Island Secretary of State's website, you can go there, you type in your address, and you can get the specific sample ballot for your district. So that is available. I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, I had one question for the administrator. I'm glad to see Janice Gomes here as well. The roof on the senior center. We received formal notification that the grant for CBG funds had come through and directing us to spend them for the roof.
And we only have $15,000, so we cannot do the whole roof. We are currently waiting for price to come in on fixing the chimney, taking off the 2 cupolas that are up there, and going as far as we can with $15,000. And then next year, hopefully, we will receive the additional $15,000 to finish the job. That's where we're at.
Are we going to put that out to bid?
Yes. Yes. When we realized we were only going to get $15,000, we met up at the senior center and looked at the roof from the ground, I might add. We looked at the roof and came up with the issues that Janice just mentioned. How are we going to make $15,000 fit It obviously could not do the whole roof. So we've modified we're in the process of modifying the specification, I believe. And at that point, we will move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Louise?
Yeah.
I got a couple of things.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. I just wanted to, Jim had touched base on the gas situation. I just wanted to mention, I don't know if any of the council members had the opportunity to stop by the emergency shelter or have a chance to see the operations or anything that took place last Thursday and Friday, but I just wanted to make comment. I did, and I just wanted to make comment to Jim and the department heads, the emergency management director, and all of the volunteers, the Red Cross, and everyone who took part in that. I thought they all did an outstanding job, and it just goes to show how well prepared the town of Tiverton was in the event of an emergency of something like that. Although, only, as far as I know, only one person actually went to the emergency shelter. I guess one lady went there, looked around, and she was kind of hoping to see any of her neighbors there. When she saw they wasn't there, she's like, well, I want to take off. But it was nice to see that it was there, and it was a comfort that, that knowing that if she needed to go there, that there was someone there for them. There were medical people there ready, available if services were needed. And I just think that it was great that the town was ready for the citizens if they needed that services. And I just wanted to make comment that I thought the town did a great job of providing that for the citizens and the Red Cross and getting everyone there in a timely manner. So I just want to recognize you guys for that.
I would like to add our thanks to Chief Lloyd, Chief Blakey, Janice Gomes, and our town clerk, Nancy Mello. Janice was the shelter manager, and Nancy assisted her. We had the Red Cross in there. It was my first experience at witnessing this, and I can't say enough. We can be very proud of our team. I received regularly scheduled calls from National Grid, and every time my phone rang, the first thing they said was the cooperation that they received from the town of Tiverton was just absolutely outstanding, and I'd like to thank everybody involved. There's one other thing I forgot to mention. I'd like to introduce Pat Sullivan. She has just a very quick note she would like to present.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalo. I'll just take a couple of sentences to say, you all have seen me sitting here often at your meetings in the last 2 years because of Conservation Commission, because of the Alliance to Preserve Tiverton's Quality, and because of myself as a resident and voter in Tiverton. And I wanted to thank you for your very good work, all of you, during the past 2 years. You have had some difficult moments, certainly, including the budgetary crisis, and you've done, I think, a very fine job. So I wanted to say congratulations, good luck to those leaving, good luck to those who hope to come back, and thanks. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Continuing on, Jim, I want to thank you also. I was thanking everyone, but I want to thank you as a council member. You kept the council abreast of everything that was going on. You kept, the emails coming to us and letting the council know what was going on. You kept us up to date, and thank you. You kept us, with the emergency, you kept us going. And in closing, I want to say thank you, because the next council meeting, will be a night where the new council will get sworn in. I just want to say thank you to all you council members. I've had a good 2 years with you guys, with some, and a little bit longer with the rest of you. And it's been a good ride, and I just want to say thank you very much, and I wish all of you the best of luck.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Well, it's hard to have a transition after that, isn't it? So,
Going to executive session?
well, we have Mr. Tights. Do you have anything further to say, Mr. Tights? No.
No, executive session. Madam President, move to go into executive session under 42, 46, 5A2 litigation.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand, please.
And to remain under 42465A5, possible acquisition or disposition of town-owned property.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand.
And further continue under 42465A6, prospective business.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. We are in executive session.